Reviewing the Euro Fantasy template team, a team consisting of the highest owned players right now. And it's safe to say there are a few interesting picks that I definitely would change. And I'm going to do exactly that in today's video. So as always, make sure to drop a like and smash that subscribe button for daily Euro Fantasy content. And enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, the goalkeepers, and Jordan Pickford is by far and away the most picked goalkeeper going into match day one with a 23% ownership. And to be honest with you, when we look at England as a team, I think we all come to the general consensus that Gareth Southgate is a little bit of a defensive manager. So having a piece of that England defence, even though there are a little bit of worries about the actual defenders who will be featuring in the team, is probably a good choice to use your money. And I do think having Pickford is probably the pick of the bunch right now. And the reason being is Maguire currently injured, hasn't actually featured for England or club in a few months. And John Stones being out of favour in a Man City team, we don't really know what the general fitness of many of these defenders are. And when we look at the price of someone like a Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier, who offer very little attacking potential, I think we naturally do default to Jordan Pickford as the best England defensive pick. And at 5 million, I think he's a really nice move in your teams. Now, it's worth noting, the group stage I actually think is a little bit difficult for England. I'm not anticipating guaranteed clean sheets over this period, but because of the ownership of the likes of those England defenders and Pickford, I think Pickford is rightly so the number one choice in our drafts. And yes, you could go a little bit different if you want to save some money, but I probably would have Pickford as one of the best 5 million goalkeepers. Now, interestingly, the second most picked goalkeeper is going to be Ukraine's Lunin, of course, having that fantastic season for Real Madrid in the absence of Courtois. Now, he did miss the recent friendly for Ukraine, but that was because of the illness that he suffered that kept him out of the Champions League final. We are anticipating him to be back for match day one. Now, with the group stage that Ukraine have, I actually think it is quite a favourable group for them. They kick things off in match day one against Romania, followed by Slovakia in match day two, with a conclusion against Belgium. I actually don't mind it for Lunin. I think he is a really good, solid choice at 4.5 million. With some uncertainties right now whether Sells at Belgium is going to be the guaranteed goalkeeper, who is, of course, 4 million. I like Lunin at 4.5 million as a choice. You could go to some other options out there that are slightly more expensive, but at 4.5 million, when I look at the other options available, I think he is the best of the bunch. So in terms of the goalkeepers, I don't really think there is much to argue with the highest owned ones right now. Let me know who yours are in the comment section. Next up, the defenders, and surprisingly to me, Frimpong is now the most selected defender in Euro Fantasy at 34%. Now, I get it. He's had a fantastic season with Bayern Leverkusen, and at 5.5 million, playing in a Netherlands defence that is pretty decent, and also potentially playing as a wing-back who offers attacking potential, I get the appeal of Frimpong. But my big question mark is, where is he actually going to feature in this Netherlands team? They have a very, very competent player in Dumfries playing right wing back historically. Is Frimpong going to naturally come in at right wing back, or due to the injuries that they've suffered, maybe Frimpong goes in at left wing back? I don't really think we have any guarantees right now, and that's why I'm quite surprised that Frimpong is currently the most owned defender in the game. Van Dijk very close in second at 32%. And at 6 million, unless we get guarantees that Frimpong will be starting for the Netherlands and we should monitor the upcoming friendlies, I probably would just pay that extra 0.5 million and get yourself someone like Van Dijk, who is going to play every single minute, and importantly has now been confirmed to be on penalties by the manager. So I think Frimpong does have naturally that more appeal because he is a flying wing back, but until we get that certainty, I'd actually take Frimpong out of your teams because I think there could be some rotation in that Netherlands team. They will naturally go for a back three due to the players available to them like Van der Ven, Van Dijk, Ake, but we might see when they need to be a bit more offensive, revert to a back four, and we don't know whether Frimpong actually makes that starting 11. So I like Frimpong, but not enough to justify him being the number one defender in this template team. I agree, I think Van Dijk is the route to go for with this uncertainty in the air. Another one that really surprises me is going to be Rudiger. He is currently 32% owned in the game, and he's 5.5 million. Now, yes, he can sometimes be a bit of a threat from set pieces, but not enough to justify paying 5.5 million for him. Now, the group stage is okay for Germany. A good match day 1 against Scotland, Hungary in match day 2, finishing off with Switzerland in match day 3. Now, they are the host nation and we're expecting a strong campaign from Germany, but at 5.5 million, I'd actually rather take a risk on someone like Mittelstadt at 4 million and save yourself 1.5 million in the bank. Mittelstadt started the most recent game for Germany in their friendly against Ukraine, started the previous 2 friendlies, and I think Mittelstadt could be locked in for match day 1. Of course, we need to monitor the next friendly, but if you can, downgrading Rudiger to Mittelstadt and then improving your bank is actually going to be the route to go in my eyes. Now, one that I really do agree with is going to be Theo Hernandez, 5.5 million and currently 25% owned with the game. I have no complaints. I think he's the best French defender for your teams. I think he has a decent group, and I think France are just strong going into this competition. With Theo Hernandez offering that attacking potential as well, I have no complaints with Theo Hernandez. And the same is going to apply for someone like Cancelo. Portugal's defence has been fantastic throughout the Euro qualifying stages, and Cancelo has been an ever-present in that team, and we know he has attacking threat in the qualities that he possesses as well as the positions that he takes up for Portugal. He would be the premium, of course, at 6 million. It might be difficult for you to build a squad with him, Van Dijk and Theo Hernandez, but if I was looking for an all-round package with great fixtures, attacking potential and just a good team, I probably would have Cancelo as the number 1 pick over both Theo Hernandez and Van Dijk. Moving into the midfielders, and I do want to put a quick caveat here that I was building a squad that you actually would be able to field in terms of players selected. Therefore, I have to say that Phil Foden is currently the 3rd most selected player at 34% owned, but I couldn't squeeze him into this team because of Pickford and the forward that will be appearing later on. But I just wanted to note that Phil Foden is actually more owned than Rodri, De Bruyne and Bruno Fernandes, and I do think Foden is a great choice. But when we do look at the number 1 pick, Bellingham, 47% owned. I'm not sure there's a little bit of Champions League bias, obviously him featuring recently in their win, but 47% owned is really big for a 9.5 million midfielder. Now, I do like Bellingham as a choice. I think he is guaranteed game time whether he plays alongside Declan Rice or whether he plays in the number 10. But that uncertainty right now of exactly where he plays in that midfield is the reason why I am not completely sold on Bellingham as a choice. 9.5 million is a big use of that budget to spend on a player who we have no guarantees on the actual position that he'll play each and every match day, every minute. So for me, I actually think you could save 1 million and go down to someone like a Bukayo Saka, who I think's game time is going to be just as good as Bellingham's, and I think his attacking threat is just as good as Bellingham's as well. Of course, Phil Foden being 0.5 million cheaper, he is the 3rd most selected player, and you could go for Foden as well, but I think the uncertainties are the same with Phil Foden. Now, the 2nd most owned player is going to be Fabian Wirtz, which is really interesting because he has had, similar to Frimpong, a fantastic season with Bayern Leverkusen, but I would argue that he hasn't really had an established Germany career. When we look at someone like Gundogan, who is less than 10% owned, much more established in that Germany team, it's interesting to see that a lot of managers are actually going towards Fabian Wirtz at 40% owned rather than those players like Musiala or Gundogan. I think Fabian Wirtz is a great choice. I do think he is going to be the chief creator in this Germany team, but we have seen a little bit of repetition from Nagelsmann where he's taken off his attacking midfielders a little bit earlier in games. Yes, they have been friendlies, but we've also seen that a little bit in Euro qualifying games. One to monitor. I still think Fabian Wirtz is a brilliant choice, and I think Germany's fixtures are good enough to justify going for at least one attacking option. Now, looking at the other highest owned players, Rodri, the 4th most owned at 23%. And this is a perfect example of, if you didn't really understand the scoring of the game, you probably wouldn't get why Rodri's in. 6.5 million for a player who is guaranteed and good fixtures for Spain. The big thing, on penalties. Took 2 in their most recent game for Spain. And we need to remember, he does actually offer some attacking potential. We're all forgetting 8 goals, 10 assists in that Man City team. And this is a Spain team that do dominate the ball, similar to Man City. And I do think Rodri will have the opportunities to have those long ranges at times if he isn't being pushed back into centre-back. So 6.5 million. The big thing that we need to remember, defensive midfielders are an option in this game because they get a point for 3 balls recovered. And Rodri is going to be the heart of all of those things in that Spain team. So I totally get the Rodri pick. I think he's a great choice at 6.5 million. The final 2, Bruno Fernandes coming in at 22% owned. I really like this one. I prefer him to any England midfielder. His returns in this Portugal team have been fantastic of late. I think his minutes are pretty guaranteed. I think this Portugal team are free scoring, and I think the fixtures are good. For me, Bruno Fernandes probably is the number one midfielder to go for, unless you're trying to squeeze Cristiano Ronaldo into your team. Then maybe you need to change the structure of that team. But for me, Bruno Fernandes is one of the number one midfielders to own in match day one. And finally, Kevin De Bruyne. This one really surprised me. 9.5 million. Look, De Bruyne is fantastic, but historically, he hasn't been a huge goal scorer for this Belgian team. Yes, he has been a creative, but I haven't seen enough from De Bruyne to suggest this season that he is justified of 20% owned going into match day one. For me, I would much rather save the money, go all the way down to maybe another 6.5 million cheap player, or a 7 million like Szoboszlai at Hungary. I don't see the hype with De Bruyne, but let me know in the comments. And finally, our forwards, and it's worth noting there are no surprises here. Harry Kane currently being 49% owned, that is massive, but when we compare that to Kylian Mbappe, who is 76% owned, these two are just running away with it right now. And it seems like a lot of Euro fantasy managers are going down the same route. Two premium forwards alongside one quote-unquote cheaper forward. And realistically, when we look at Kylian Mbappe, he just ticks all the boxes. He's playing for one of the favourites in the tournament, on penalties, guaranteed minutes, decent fixtures, one would argue, and historically steps up in these competitions. I think it would take a very brave manager to go against someone like Kylian Mbappe. And with those things said, I think the exact same things applies to Harry Kane, one of the favourites in the competition, historically has stepped up in games, penalty taker, and he actually has okay fixtures in this group. So for me, Mbappe and Kane, they are ridiculously highly owned, in particular Mbappe, but for me, I just think it is completely justified, and I don't really need to make a case on why you should go against them. The third forward right now is actually joint. We have Cristiano Ronaldo at 15% owned and Kai Havertz at 15%. I think Cristiano Ronaldo is a brilliant choice for your teams, but with the structure that a lot of people are going for, Mbappe, Kane, it's quite difficult to squeeze that third forward in at 10 million euros, especially if you want to then have maybe an England midfielder or a Portuguese midfielder on top of that. So because of that, I've gone for the other 15% owned forward in Kai Havertz. And I really do like Kai Havertz, not really for the high ceiling that maybe Cristiano Ronaldo has, but being in the host nation, a good season at Arsenal, playing as a forward, and he's 7.5 million. I think he ticks a lot of the boxes going into this competition, and I think Kai Havertz is justified to be one of the best value forwards in the game right now. Lukaku at 11% does also have an appeal. He is, of course, 9 million, slightly more expensive than Kai Havertz. So that is the most owned team, barring Phil Foden, of course, as I mentioned. But, of course, it is 9.5 million over budgets. What I want to do quickly is just go through a team that you could afford that is also highly owned. And I think there are a few changes that we can make to particular players like Frimpong and Rudiger that could improve this team in general. Okay, so here is an example of a team where I've tried to keep it with the most owned players, but also try to fit it in with the 100 million euro budget that we do have. So I've kept the goalkeepers. I think Pickford and Lunin are perfectly fine for your teams. If you wanted to, you could downgrade Lunin to someone like a Sells if we have confirmation he is the starting goalkeeper in that Belgium team. But I think that is a perfectly fine combination. And as I mentioned, I think having some England defensive coverage is a good route to go for. Now, surprisingly, I've taken out quite a few defenders here. I've downgraded Frimpong to DiMarco. I think he offers just as much as Frimpong in this Italy team. And importantly, in match day one, they have a brilliant fixture against Georgia. He is attacking in an Italy team that I don't think are strong as years gone by, but strong enough to put in a good performance in match day one. And then it depends on your chip strategy, because the fixtures after that are quite difficult, but maybe you could just then transfer him out your team. I prefer him in match day one to Frimpong. Now, of course, we had to save some money along the way, and unfortunately, I have sacrificed Van Dijk. I think Netherlands are a brilliant defence to invest in, but I prefer João Cancelo at that 6 million price bracket, just because that added attacking threat that he does have. So I've gone all the way down to Wout at Belgium. Look, I'm not expecting much from Belgium, but 4 million for a starting centre-back, I think that's good value, and we do need to make those slight cutbacks along the way. So Wout is in at 4 million, and I've also downgraded Rudiger to Mittelstadt at 4 million. I think he is going to start at left back, but of course we do need to monitor that situation. And if he does offer an attacker potential, I think he's a much better option than someone like a Rudiger. So I think those downgrades in the defence actually improve this overall squad. Now, moving into the midfield, of course, we've had to make some sacrifices along the way, unfortunately. As you can see, we have brought in Calhoun. I can never pronounce him, so we're going to call him Hakim at Turkey. I feel like I just sabotage my own videos putting him in the team. So I've had to downgrade Jude Bellingham. I haven't been able to squeeze in a Bukayo Saka either, which really does hurt me. But I do think having the investment of Harry Kane in attack sometimes can just be enough for that England attack, which can be a little bit stop-start sometimes. I really like him, Hakim, because he's a penalty taker in that Turkey team. I think Arda Güler is the interesting one, but no reassurances that he is going to start every single game. Hakim is going to be at the heartbeat of everything good in that Turkey team on penalties, and he actually had a really good goal scoring season for Inter Milan with 11 goals. So I think that downgrade's justified. I don't think you need to move away from Fabian Wirtz. I think he's just as good as Gundogan in that Germany team. And I agree with Rodri and Bruno Fernandes. But I have made a big downgrade in this team. But I actually don't think it's a downgrade from an actual Euro fantasy choice. And that is Kevin De Bruyne down to Dominik Szoboszlai in this Hungary team. I spoke about him a lot. He is the heartbeat of this Hungary team on set pieces. And he does offer attacking threat. I think he is as good as De Bruyne and is 2.5 million cheaper. And with those downgrades, it's meant that we can keep that forward line of Mbappe, Kane and Kai Havertz. So I think this team, as I mentioned, is affordable, covers you off in all the highly owned players, and also gives you alternatives to those players that might have some question marks about them. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's video. I think it's always interesting and beneficial to take a look at the template team to get an idea on which players are truly highly owned. And hopefully this has given you a few examples of alternatives that you can go for. As always, make sure you drop a like and smash the subscribe button, because there will be daily Euro fantasy content between now and the end of the competition. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing day. Take care. Cheers.